viewers, welcome to yet another session on gender sensitization. In this video, we will discuss about social construction of gender. I am Nilima Srivastav, professor with School of Gender and Development Studies, IGNOU, New Delhi. After watching this video, you will be able to explain what is understood by gender and how it is different from sex. You will also be able to analyze how gender constructs the notion of femininity and masculinity by the process of gender socialization. In this session, we will discuss how gender is constructed, then what are the differences between sex and gender, how gender socialization takes place, and how gender stereotypes regulate lives of people. Also, how gender appropriate behavior and roles are expected of members of a group. Thereafter, we will discuss about construction of femininity and masculinity, concluding the session by discussing about emotional labor and its feminization. As a concept, gender came into common parlance in early 1970s. It is used as an analytical category to draw a line between biological sex differences and the way these are used to inform behavior and competencies. Feminists in 1970s argued that the notion of gender is a construct. That is, gender is a social identity that needs to be contextualized. Gender categories are not homogeneous. It is lived, experienced differently depending on one's class, ethnicity, nationality, and sexuality. People internalize social expectations and gender norms as per their ascribed gender and act and behave accordingly. But the most significant attribute of gender that impact individuals' life is related to inherent inequalities. You must be wondering, how does it function? Who benefits from the way that gender is constructed? The second wave of feminism in late 60s and early 70s brought gender into focus of academic discourse by counteracting the assumption that differences between women and men were designed by nature. Let's now look at how is sex different from gender. Gender is the socio-cultural phenomenon of the division of people into various categories such as male and female, with each having associated roles, expectations, stereotypes, etc. Whereas sex is either of two main divisions into which many organisms can be placed according to their reproductive function or organs. Therefore, it can be said that sex is biological and defines individuals based on their reproductive anatomy, while gender refers to one's maleness and femaleness. Let us also look at how feminists have discussed the notion and distinction between sex and gender. Anne Oakley, a British sociologist, defined sex as the anatomical and physiological characteristics which signifies biological maleness or femaleness, and gender as socially constructed masculinity and femininity. Guy Rubin says that each society has sex and gender system, a set of arrangements by which raw material of human sex and procreation is shaped by human intervention. These arrangements vary from society and culture to another. Gender for Rubin is a socially imposed division of the sexes and a product of social relations of sexuality. The concept of gender enables us to think of masculinity and femininity as historically and culturally variable rather than fixed by nature, that is, what it means to be a woman or a man vary within any given society at any one time. Let us also now understand the feminist critique of sex and gender distinction. Feminists assert that psychological distinction between gender, which means roles and norms ascribed to a particular gender, and sex, that relates to anatomy and physiology, are very theoretical and politically productive. Feminists also argue that, of course, women and men are different in physique and reproductive function, but these differences do not have any relevance for opportunities they should have or activities they should engage in. Gender denotes an hierarchical division between women and men, which is embedded in both social institutions and social practices. Therefore, gender is a social structural phenomenon that is produced, negotiated, and sustained in everyday interaction. Gender also encompasses the social division and cultural distinction between women and men, as well as the characteristics commonly associated with femininity and masculinity. The gender categories are never neutral and they are not even equal. This construction of gender perpetuates the system of dominance across the society. Let us now discuss what is understood by socialization and how it is related to construction of gender. To put it simply, socialization is the process of transferring norms, values, beliefs, and behaviors to group members. The most intense period of socialization is during childhood, when adults who are members of a particular cultural group instruct young children on how to behave in order to comply with social norms. Socialization is the process by which the child transforms into the social being by adhering to social values, norms, and socially desired behavior. Then how is gender included in this process? Individuals are taught how to socially behave in accordance with their gender, which is assigned at birth based on their biological sex. Like male babies are given the gender of boy, while female babies are given the gender of girl. Many feminists problematize it to be a self-perpetuating system and have shown concern with respect to gender socialization. Let us now see what is gender socialization. We have learned that gender differences are attributed to differences in socialization rather than genetic and biological factors. Gender socialization, therefore, is the process by which males and females are informed about the norms and behaviors associated with their sex. The process of educating and instructing males and females as to the norms, behaviors, values, beliefs of group membership as men and women. Gender socialization begins even before the birth of a child, when prospective parents are asked whether they are expecting a boy or a girl. Gender socialization operates as a binary, exclusively comprised of two parts, that is, individuals are socialized into conceiving of their gender as either masculine or feminine. But some individuals do not feel that way, that they fall into the gender binary, and they choose to question or challenge the male masculine or female masculine binary. For example, transgenders and queer community. They feel that their gender identity does not match their biological sex, and they may identify as somewhere other than male or female, in between male and female, a combination of male and female, or a third gender altogether. These identities demonstrate the fluidity of gender that is so commonly thought to be biological and indisputable. Gender fluidity also shows that gender norms are learned and either accepted or rejected by the socialized individuals. Thus, we come to a conclusion that the two polarized positions, which is sex that relates to maleness or femaleness, that is the biological basis of sex differentiation, and gender, what is constructed culturally and ascribed notions about femininity and masculinity, can be described as biological essentialism and social constructism. Let us now look at how femininity and masculinity is constructed. By now, you know that masculinity and femininity refers to an individual's gender in terms of maleness and femaleness. Sex-typical female traits emerge in women under the actions of estrogen during pubertal development. These include facial traits such as a round overall shape, wide eyes, and full lips, and bodily traits such as permanent stores of fat around the hips, thighs, and breasts. Sex-typical male traits develop under the action of androgens during pubertal development. These include craniofacial masculinity, which is depicted by enlarged brow ridge, thicker jaw, small eyes, and more robust and mild mid-face, facial and body hair, vocal pitch, height, and masculinity. Masculinity and femininity are product not of biology but of social, cultural, and psychological attributes acquired through the process of becoming a man or a woman in a particular society at a particular time. Margaret Mead argued that feminine and masculine attributes and roles are largely cultural rather than natural. She further asserted that despite the diversity in sex-differentiated activities of society, what is deemed masculine is always superior. Although Mead has been critiqued for judging other societies by the lens of Western gender stereotypes, but there is a general agreement that our work demonstrated cultural flexibility of gender, thus illustrating its disconnection with biological sex. Let's now look at what is understood by gender roles. A gender role is a way of appearing and behaving that meets cultural expectations based on an individual's gender. Gender roles are socially attributed normative behaviors with respect to a given gender, which in turn are attached to a particular biological sex. Gender roles regulate how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex. Like girls and women are expected to dress in typically feminine ways and be polite, accommodative, and nurturing, while men are expected to be strong, assertive, and bold. Let us now look at what is understood by stereotypes. Gender stereotypes are an outcome of gender socialization. Gender stereotypes lead to unequal and unfair treatment because of persons' ascribed gender. As children get older, gender stereotypes become more apparent in styles of dress and choice of leisure activities. Both boys and girls who do not conform to gender stereotypes are usually ostracized by their peers for being different. This can lead to negative effects such as low self-esteem. Masculine craniofacial, which means bones of skull and face, are traits that are judged as less warm, caring, having less interest in long-term relationship, and providing lower paternal investment. Men judge more feminine-looking women to be warmer, trustworthy, cooperative, and more sexually attractive than more masculine-looking women. This is a classic example of how gender stereotypes are formed in society. Gender stereotypes can be associated with physical appearance, that is, how women are expected to be thin, beautiful, graceful, petite, while men are expected to be muscular, tall, and handsome. Gender stereotypes can also be associated with personality traits like women are incompetent, emotional, cautious, dependent, weak, etc., while men are brave, adventurous, logical, etc. Gender stereotypes can also be associated with gender roles like women are good housekeepers, peacemakers, while men make better breadwinners or leaders. Occupational segregation is also associated with gender stereotypes that make people think that women make good teachers and nurses, while men are more suited to be engineers, surgeons, and other such male represented occupations. Now let us look into what is understood by emotional labor. In simple terms, emotional labor means emotional management that we all do in our everyday lives. The term was originally coined by a sociologist, Arlie Hochschild, which means the faking, suppressing, magnifying, or altering of emotion in the employment realm. Emotional management that is prescribed by the organization itself is absolutely indispensable to the job and therefore can be considered institutionalized. Here we can think of service sector and hospitality sector where employees are expected to be at their best even when they are in distress or not feeling up to it. They have to fake their emotions to be welcoming, to be warm, hospitable, irrespective of their personal problems. Let us now look at how feminization of emotional labor takes place. Working women who spoke of the ways they were more likely than their male counterparts to be engaged in daily emotional work at their jobs. For example, when a birthday party has to be celebrated in the office or a farewell function has to be organized, it is generally assigned to women in the office to take up this responsibility. While such emotional work is not necessarily an organizational demand, the gender expectations are constantly placed on women in the private sphere, mirrored in the public realm. The extra emotion work women do to contribute to work culture is not recognized as work, as it is considered a manifestation of innate characteristics that women not only enjoy but just are. Also, this not only places the onus of making space for the needs or wants of others predominantly on women, it grants men the liberty of being emotionally lazy. Let us now look at the phenomenon of social constructionalism. The idea that social institutions and knowledge are created by actors within the system rather than having any inherent truth on their own must have been understood by you by now. You would have also understood that the notion that people's understanding of reality is partially, if not entirely, is socially situated. Social constructivists propose that there is no inherent truth to gender. It is constructed by social expectations and gender performance. To sum up, we can say that social constructivism seeks to blur the binary of male and female, which are often presumed to be essential. Social constructivism proposes that everything people know or see as reality is to a great extent socially situated. To conclude, we can say that gender is a social construction of masculinity and femininity and the social ordering of relations between men and women. If you would like to read in more details about how gender is constructed, you can look up the references given here. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and it has increased your understanding of how gender is constructed socially and what implications it has on the life of men and women or members of a group and how it regulates everyday life of people. Thank you.